this is something I was thinking about at the beginning of the season, right? Is the past 7 seasons, there's been a quarterback who's taken a huge leap. So, you go back to 2017, that was the year when McVay came to the Rams and Goff became great. 2018 was the Mahomes breakout year. 2019, Lamar Jackson MVP. 2020 was that incredible Josh Allen year. 2021, Joe Burrow. And then last year, I think you can pick either Trevor Lawrence or Jalen Hurts, either way you want to go, but they both took big steps forward. So I made a list at the start of the season of who I thought had potential to sort of break out, who to watch. Here was on the list: Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, Jordan Love. And if you go back to the start of the season, everyone had a different take about which of those guys was going to break out, but the assumption was one of them surely would, right?
Yes.
But weirdly enough this year, Sam Howell has looked okay despite being the NFL leader in sacks. But otherwise, none of those guys have really looked any good. So we haven't seen that quarterback breakout where a person who's been in the league for at least a year sort of has gotten some time under their belt, really takes that big step forward and impresses. On the other hand, I do think a quarterback has sort of unexpectedly played incredibly well and will continue to play at a high level. So I think, weirdly enough, CJ Stroud is sort of filling that role. So that's been a huge surprise for me this season, that CJ Stroud has looked like a borderline top 10 quarterback, more or less since week 3 of his pro career. I'm excited to see where the kid goes.
I mean, yeah, CJ Stroud having more touchdown passes than Kenny Pickett is absurd.
Career.
Yeah, career. That is, I mean, that's totally absurd.
I think you're right, Ziggy, that Stroud is the breakout guy, and usually you don't see that in rookie seasons. I went back and watched him play the entire game against the Buccaneers this weekend, and it's insane. Go watch. If you're a Texans fan, go watch. Chase Daniels the former quarterback, does a really good breakdown of it, and you just see that CJ Stroud, he sees everything on the field. His release is unbelievably quick. The ball goes exactly where he wants. It's just, to compete in the AFC, you need to have the quarterback. That's just part of the way that conference is right now. And the Texans fans, you have to be just super pumped up. The NFC's defense-oriented, a little bit. It's in the trenches. That's where you win. The AFC, you got to be able to throw the football well. I think the Texans right now, we've seen some of the comments. Their fan base is so pumped up, and they should be. He's just been unbelievable this season.
Yeah, I want to talk about another guy that Ziggy brought up there, in Justin Fields. We said before the season started, this, to all of us, was kind of his last hurrah, his last chance.
He was the guy most people thought would break out.
Yeah. And in his defense, he's been injured, but he looked like he might have been starting to turn things on before he went down. A bit of a rough start to the year, but the last 2 or 3 games he played, he looked awesome before getting injured.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
During the Viking game, I think he was iffy, but against Washington and Denver for the most part, despite them the Broncos coming back and winning, you were starting to see a better Justin Fields.
Like, he was looking good, yeah.
Just think about, I wrote it down here, that Panthers trade for Bryce Young, and it's early. It's still very early in all these guys' careers. But if things continue to go the way that they are, Carolina fans are sitting here looking at CJ Stroud developing into a superstar, losing that first overall pick potentially, which could be Caleb Williams or Drake May, also giving up DJ Moore, a premier receiver in the NFL, even more picks beyond that. This is a trade to keep an eye on. I don't think it will. I actually think Bryce Young will be an okay starter, but this has potential to be one of the worst trades in the history of football.
I mean, I could have told the Panthers GM before the draft, don't draft this guy. I was saying
it wasn't the Panthers GM, but
no.
If you listen to what's coming from the Panthers organization, this is the thing that concerns me, actually. It's not the play. It's the fact that already guys like Frank Reich, who've been in the NFL for a while, are trying to sort of blame David Tepper. They're trying to say, look, you know what kind of quarterback I like, and we took Bryce Young. And who does Frank Reich like, you ask? He likes quarterbacks who are accurate in college, who are big, who are strong, who maybe aren't the most athletic, but are pretty good at like reading the field. every single person who reported on the Panthers thought that the guy was going to be CJ Stroud until Tepper step in and rebalance the scales. So people might be losing their jobs over this, but like that, the fact that the organization is already panicking a little bit isn't good. And I'll just say the fact that none of those guys have broken out, entering a year where there should be a lot of good quarterbacks in the draft, means this year we set a record in the NFL, right? There have been 10 rookies that have started at quarterback for a team. That's most in any non-strike season. I think it could be even more next year with a lot of these teams, the Patriots, the Packers, maybe the Commanders, maybe the Steelers, maybe the Bears could be starting a new quarterback, maybe even the Falcons.
I mean, even the Vikings are honestly in there too. You don't know who it'll be. Kirk Cousins actually, like Kirk and Jared Goff are also guys who sort of are breaking out this, like Jared Goff at the end of last year, but Kirk Cousins was having the best season of his career, even though, he's 35 years old.
And I feel like a quarterback too is such a short leash position for so many teams because it's hard not to panic.
And it's getting shorter too.
Like when you don't get results from a quarterback, a team is only really as good as their quarterback is good. Like if they have a bad quarterback, that's a bad situation. And if they're not looking good after a year or two, that's it. It's a short leash.
That's crazy.
That's just the truth.
It is crazy how well this is working out for Houston right now, though. Even giving up the pick for Will Anderson. Think about the year they're having or hoping to have, potentially a playoff run. The pick you would have had this year, you would 100% take Will Anderson. Like wherever they wind up picking in the teens, probably, maybe late teens, you're basically slotting Will Anderson into that pick. Yeah. They have just done things really well. For Zach's D'Amico Ryan's Coach of the Year prediction.